Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions in the worlds of social media, sports, and pop culture, and we're diving into the world of entertainment. We're talking to some actors and a comedian. He's also an actor as well, but we're going to have a lot of cool chats about the entertainment industry, streaming. We're going to talk about the work of our panelists. So I'm quickly going to introduce the panel. First, we have actor. You've seen him as Skinny Pete on Breaking Bad. And he's currently in The Blacklist. Charles Baker's with us. Charles, welcome to Popternative.
Thanks for having me. You don't have to do that.
He's also in one of my favorite horror movies of all time, Splinter. So if anyone has not seen that, you should definitely check it out. Nice little campy horror film there. Yeah, no, it's a good one. And then we have actor currently on Billions, and he's also on The Americans, and he's also on Turn on AMC. Kelly Aucoin is with us. Kelly, welcome to Popternative.
Hey, how you doing?
Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, we have comedian and actor. He has a show called In Hot Water on compoundmedia.com. Aaron Berg is with us. Aaron, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you. What a great panel.
Yeah. I'm happy. I'm glad you were all able to do this. It's gonna be awesome. So,
I gotta watch it after we're done.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping. So, Aaron, let's start with you. You've been pretty busy with your comedy, and you're also an author. You've been doing a lot of stuff. So, what lately have you been working on that we could check out? And how is it being a comedian and also someone who also, like, you're an actor as well? You've been in some movies. I saw your IMDb, and then I went back and watched it. You were in also one of my favorite movies of all time. You were in Detroit Rock City.
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry I have to go rewatch, but then I saw you in it, and I was like, oh, that's Howard. He's coming on my show. Awesome. But yeah, talk a little bit about what you've been up to lately.
Doing a lot of stand-up. I'm doing about 20 shows a week in Manhattan, so keeping that muscle going. We have a great podcast that really advocates satire and free speech called In Hot Water. It's absolutely hilarious. Myself and Gino Bisconti do it on Compound Media. And I was on This Is Not Happening on Comedy Central, which is Ari Shaffir's show, and you can see that out right now. And I'm working on getting a late night set ready for a late night show, which will be announced very shortly. And I'll be on the road. I go out and do comedy and just try and put it all together, you know.
Great, and I've seen some of your stuff, and you are very funny, sir. It's I just found out that you were in Ottawa a few weeks ago. I'm sorry I missed that, but next time you're in town, I'll be sure to come by for sure.
What a wonderful city you have. It's so great to be in a place that closes down at 10 at night, and it just makes you feel relaxed. You know, it's great. Don't worry about doing stuff after midnight.
And Kelly Aucoin is with us. Kelly, you are on a show right now called Billions with Paul Giamatti, and you are also on The Americans and Turn. So you've been pretty busy. Talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of Kelly Aucoin and some of the characters you're playing on Billions and The Americans.
Yeah, well, I'm having a great time. It's a nice stretch right now that I'm sort of exhausted, but I'm not going to complain. Billions, I play. It's on Showtime Sundays at 10. I play Dollar Bill, who's the cheapest multimillionaire in the hedge fund industry. And can we swear on this show? Are we? A
little bit.
Yeah, okay. He's a raging douchebag, but he's also loyal. And on The Americans. Well, he's loyal to the people he works with. He has two families, so he's not particularly loyal to his wives. But on The Americans, I played Pastor Tim, who's like the sweetest, humblest guy in the world. So it's really fun to play at the same time play those two ridiculously opposite characters. And then on Turn, I'm only in for this. It's the fourth and final season for a few episodes, but it's I'm a Taylor spy, Hercules Mulligan.
Yes, and you were also on a few episodes. My mom made me want to say this, but you were on House of Cards as well for a little bit, and that's my mom's favorite show. So she wanted.
You said you were in the nation's capital. You in D.C. or you're in the
national capital? I'm in Canada, so I'm in Ottawa.
I was going to be like, that's why she loves it.
Kelly, they just got the first season of House of Cards there today.
Well, my dad was a politician. He was actually a congressman from Oregon for 18 years. And so I think he had this love-hate relationship with it because the show is, it's most presidents don't actually push people in front of subway cars. I hope that wasn't a spoiler for anybody. But still, it's fun. It's kind of like Billions in the hedge fund world. There are things that are a little perhaps over the top, but it's in the spirit of the industry. I think there's that was fun too. I think I was the only nice guy in the entire House of Cards universe.
Yeah, no, it's cool too that like from Americans and from Billions, the different characters, that's cool. And Charles Bakers is also with us here, and Charles, a lot of people know him from a show called Breaking Bad. I don't know if that rings a bell to any of you, but you played
the best show ever on TV.
You played Skinny Pete, and we'll get into your work a little bit, but talk about what it was like playing Skinny Pete in such an iconic show like Breaking Bad, Charles.
There were some good sides and bad sides, I'll be honest. The good side was I was on Breaking Bad, and I got to work with Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, Dean Norris, all these like brilliant actors, and Vince Gilligan, and I got to be on Breaking Bad. The frustrating part as an actor, and then I like Kelly came from theater. You did theater, right?
Yeah.
And I'm Shakespearean trained, and I was playing in the greatest drama on television, and I was one of the most two-dimensional characters in the show. I was constantly like going to the writers right before a scene and going, "Hey, where it says this, could I read between the lines?" And like, no, just what's on the page, nothing else, just what's on the page. And so that's, I'm not at all complaining about the fact that I was able to be on the show and stay on as long as I was. Especially I was started as a day player on that. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, I wanted to it's like, just give me one of those monologues that Aaron got, one of those just beautiful, like carving a box monologues. Give me one of those. I'll like nail that sucker.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm Skinny Pete. Give me a monologue.
You're like, shut up. Talk about Star Trek. Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's such an interesting thing, isn't it? Like actors, when I was starting out, I always wanted a niche. I was just give me a fucking niche so that I can actually, people will start to hire me to do that thing. And then, but it can become a trap because if you do it so well, and you did that so beautifully.
Thank you.
And you brought nuance to it. I hope you feel it.
I feel like I was trying to.
Yeah, but it does become a trap, kind of.
It does, because I'd never played a druggie like that before. I in theater I was a character, but I was the comedic clown kind of character. I was a musical theater kind of guy, and so like no matter what other roles I've played before that, Breaking Bad got me to the point where everything I got called for was a Skinny Pete type. Mm-hmm. And I could see the disappointment in casting directors and producers' faces when I walked in the door and they're like, "You're not some illiterate dope fiend." I'm sorry, I never actually dress like that or act like that. I had to learn the mannerisms and the language from the people that were mostly playing like other low-life scumbags.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, you had to act?
I had to act. And it's amazing how surprised sometimes Hollywood gets by people who do that.
I feel like there's been a big move in the past few years, but I feel like people are starting to break out of it, where people thought television and film wasn't about acting for a while. They thought it was more about behaving. So a lot of stuff you were going in for, they were like, nah, don't act, just behave. And now it's coming back around where guys like you that are so innovative with the craft can actually do the work again and be hired and applauded for the work that you do, which is great.
I hope so.
And you said
that's the influence of reality TV too, because we're used to seeing people just act without being self-conscious of the camera, and that becomes sort of what acting is in some people's minds.
Yeah.
No, they didn't look straight into the camera once. My God, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
You know.
And Charles, you said you have a theater background, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the last episode of Popternative I did a one-on-one with actor Divian Ladwa, who was in the Academy Award nominated film Lion with Nicole Kidman and Dev Patel, which is an amazing movie. And he was talking about how different it was to prepare himself for a film like that after having such a theater background. Right. And he says it was a completely different. And I'm just interested, Aaron, because I mentioned you're an actor, but you're mainly like comedy is what you're doing a lot of.
Yeah, I mean,
the difference is, like, I was just curious, like, how to prepare yourself for a comedy act versus, reading for a part. Like, how do you face that? Because it's different, right? Of course.
Stand-up is basically zero preparation for me. If I'm just doing like club sets, it's I want to go up totally a blank slate and just work in the moment. Whereas, if I was auditioning or I was working on a role, like I did a series called 24-Hour Rental a while ago, where it was like I do the work the night before and then you try and forget the work when you go in and just be like, okay, I'm going to be in the moment. But it's a really different thing because stand-up, now my style of stand-up is just a lot of improv kind of stuff where it's all just in the moment of things I want to say, but they just kind of splatter all over the act wherever they fall in the hour,
Yeah, and but comedy is something you've been focusing on a lot, but do you like acting? Is that something that you want to continue doing?
I love it. I mean, these guys are heroes. They kept through it. I mean, I got sick of not auditioning enough or getting rejected enough. So I was like, I'm going to do something that I felt I had more control over, which was stand-up, because it wasn't as reliant. And I know that there's the old saying, if you want to act, just act. But I was finding it, my move from Canada to the United States was very difficult because up there I was making a living and I was doing, some recurring stuff and a lot of day player stuff, but I was making a living as a blue-collar actor. And then to move here and kind of be nobody and get thrown into that juxtaposition was difficult for me. And I found stand-up was a better way to make a living, and I love it. But I never turned down, good work. It never turned down good work.
Absolutely. Well, it's cool, like how versatile you are too, right? To kind of be able to, audition for a role, and then the next day you say, "Oh, I'm headlining at an after-hour show." Like it's a pretty exciting life to kind of have both aspects of it.
Yeah. But I mean, you got actors that are on the best television shows in the world right now on this.
Yeah.
Show. So it's you got the cream of the crop right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still know what it's what you mean by the rejection, the waiting for the auditions, and Bob Odenkirk, Saul on Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. We were talking in between scenes, and he said he can't understand actors who just sit around waiting for work. He said, if I'm not in something, I'm working on making something or finding something to do. And I think a lot of us, that's what we do, just not all of it's necessarily public kind of work.
Yeah.
And
it's just a matter of keeping yourself busy in between, trying to stay sane.
It's interesting too because you see all the shows out there. It brings us to my next question for the panel, and hopefully we can have a good chat about this. But Popternative is a social media centric show. We like talking about that, and there's so much content out there right now, and streaming is huge, and there's so many options for pop culture lovers to kind of check out what they want to, like new shows. Like Netflix has been like pumping out content like nonstop. So I just wanted to go around the table and talk about for the last 5 years with digital media, what have you noticed the most? Because there's a lot of things that have changed, but what change have you noticed, either for the good or the bad, for your profession as an entertainer, as an actor? Kel, let's start with you. What has been different since, for you the most, with the advent of social media for an actor?
Social media or streaming? You're talking about streaming content?
Well, digital media, all of that, yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the great, there's just more content. So there are more roles out there. And we were talking about niches before. I think you don't have to be 22 and beautiful to work consistently in TV anymore. And that's fantastic. I recently celebrated the anniversary of my 35th birthday, and I'll never admit which anniversary that was, but I'm now over 35, and for me, TV took off about 5 or 6 years ago, and I don't think that would have necessarily happened, or at least not as easily happened, if the old model were still in place. I think one of the and that's great, and there are tons of my theater friends here from New York that are writing on shows, on Billions and The Americans. One of my great friends, Tanya Barfield, who wrote a play I did called The Call 4 years ago here in New York, was writing on The Americans 2 years ago. And that's wonderful. And theater actors who are constantly showing up. One of the negatives is that for some reason, there's more content and there's the same number of actors. So you would think then that salaries would increase, but for some reason that's just not the case. Mm-hmm. I think part of it is that the big name people are really interested in the amazing content that's out there now, partially because they don't have to appeal to everybody, so they can actually create really, really wonderfully idiosyncratic shows. But you've got movie stars who want to do this now, and they command a high salary, and so that makes it difficult for the rest of us to make. It's harder to become a series regular. I was in every episode of Billions this last year, but I'm recurring. I'm not a regular. Yeah. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, definitely I would have been a regular, So there's a give and take. I mean, overall right now, I'll take it because I do think there's better work out there than ever. The whole cliche about the golden age of TV is true, and it's been going on for 15 years now. So it is a bit of a give and take, but overall, I think it's a really positive thing.
Charles, can you comment a little bit about what Kelly just said, and also about, because he's talking more about the content aspect of it, but like not only the content like the shows, but just the content in terms of so many blogs out there helping new shows and new actors develop fan bases. It's a whole different world out there.
It really is. It really is, and you kind of have to stay on top of it to keep up. I have a team of people that help me keep on top of it, and that includes like my wife and kids, some that I don't have to necessarily pay, other than support otherwise.
You pay?
Yeah, I pay dearly, just not in the same way I pay the other people. But he's right. There's a lot of different platforms, a lot of different content that you can now take over. But like you said, someone once told me movies have now become what TV used to be for children, and TV has become more for adults. Which you used to go take the kids to a movie, or you go to the movie to leave the kids at home, and then the whole family would sit down and watch, Leave It to Beaver, what have you. And now TV is more centered towards the grown-up group, and movies are all superheroes and fantasy, and not all completely, as we noticed by this last range of Oscar contenders. But film actors are like seeing the benefit of working on television, and so they are taking a lot of the bigger roles. And like Kelly, I was on Breaking Bad. I was a day player for 14 episodes before I was even considered a recurring character on my final episode. And they do that because they can now, because it is kind of a saturated market. The other, used to be, if you wanted to audition for movies or television, you had to be in New York or LA. Now you can do it from your living room, sitting at your computer. You can self-tape. A lot more people are getting the opportunities. People in the UK and Australia and all over the world are getting the same opportunities that those of us who migrated are getting. Which I think leads us to why training now has become a little bit more important in this business than just being able to fly off the cuff, because now we have some very well-trained actors from all over the world who are going in for these roles.
Mm-hmm. So the landscape is completely changed. And Aaron, do you also think for comedians getting, because we're talking about there's a lot more content, and I find it interesting, and I think a good question for you is, do you kind of see it as, oh man, there's all these new shows now, and maybe there's a chance they want like a comedian to play in 2-3 episodes, you know what I mean, just like a role, a small guest role. Do you see it more as like for comedians and sitcoms more an opportunity for more work because there's more shows out there?
Definitely, yeah, but the streaming platforms are also great for stand-up because stand-up is so cheap to make. So there's a lot more stand-up shows out there, like Big J. Okerson's got a show on CISO. Ari Shaffir's show started as a streaming show on Comedy Central, and then they picked it up because the numbers were so great. So I think, the more platforms that there are, the better it is for everybody.
And to comment on that too, you mentioned BJ Okerson, who is hilarious. Like I remember discovering that guy a few years back. And Netflix, you mentioned like all the TV, like the comedy specials. Like there just seems to be so many of them. But I just want to know what your as a comedian, your standpoint is on that, because doesn't that flood the market a little bit, or do you kind of have the attitude like keep them coming? I
think a lot of people are getting specials, and the best way to describe some of them are they're not very special. But a lot of great guys are churning. I watched Nick DiPaolo's special recently. It was great, but there's some people that aren't ready for specials, but because their teams put them in a place where they're enabled to do it, they do it. And a lot of the specials fall by the wayside. It's not like back in the old days where, 2 or 3 comics would have a special out every year, and you'd go and see these great, groundbreaking things by like Richard Pryor or George Carlin. It's not that anymore. It's just like, here's a new hour. And, Louis kind of did that to a certain degree, where he's like, I'm going to churn out a new hour every year. And then all these other comics that weren't as skilled were like, I'm going to do a new hour every year. But it's all just fart stuff, which is, I think brilliant. But, the method.
Yeah.
Never not funny.
Never not funny.
It like I have when I have people from the entertainment world, or I have a lot of athletes on too, and I ask them about social media, and they're more they're actually pretty interesting to answer the question about so much content, because they're more passive on social media. They won't tweet out stuff, but they're going to read everything, and they're the first ones to tell you that there's so much noise in there. Like there's so many different things, and you look at Netflix and you're getting all these blogs telling you that there's like 25 more comedy specials to check out, and it's like, oh well, I have 25 to check out already. Like I'm trying to get in. Like I'm watching Billions right now, and I'm having a hard time. Like I'm the type of person, like I can only have like 2-3 shows at a time, because I'm not that with all of my on the go, but it's hard to keep up. And are we ever going to keep up?
You cannot keep up. You can't see everything. There's so much good stuff out there. I've got friends who have created entire web series that I haven't been able to watch yet. I just saw one recently, and I was like all sheepish about it, but you can't see everything. And also every once in a while I want to read a book, every once in a while, but yeah. It's hard. It's a good problem to have, because there's so much good stuff. But it's difficult. And I'm not even really caught up on the Blacklist. I was on 3 episodes last year, and I've seen those. I'm selfish, but some I guess. But yeah.
Charles, do you ever go back and watch Breaking Bad? Like, do your family go and watch an episode, or does that ever come up a lot?
That hasn't yet. I don't. I feel weird. You know, I see TV shows of, you know, some washed out actor sitting there watching his glory days on the show, and I don't want to feel like that, and I don't want like somebody to come walking in and I'm like, oh gosh, like, what are you watching, porn? No, I'm watching myself.
Tell him it's porn.
Tell him it's porn. It's porn. But I was thinking about that the other day. It's like when, you know, I have 2 young children, and my daughter, she was like just born when I started on Breaking Bad, and she's 9 now. And in another 9 years, it might be fun to sit down with her and let her watch it and find out why everyone keeps calling me Skinny Pete.
Yeah, definitely not now. Don't show her some of
No, we keep that part in. She knows, man. Like, oh no, Daddy. She knows Daddy plays a bad guy in a lot of stuff, which is why. But she never gets to actually watch me in anything because it's like, yeah, well, I'm not really murdering that guy. I'm not really suffocating that person. I'm not really beating that kid. Things like that. And she's an actor too, and she's starting to get that now. She just shot a pilot with Comedy Central.
Great, that's awesome.
So yeah, I'm like, right on. Someone else start paying the bills. I keep her away from that, and I haven't been able to go back and rewatch. Sometimes I see someone will post something on Twitter or on Facebook or Instagram that's like, you know, a clip of a scene that I'm in. I'm like, oh wow, I totally forgot I was in that scene.
Yeah.
And it's like, say something from the show. Like, I can't remember really everything I said from the show. Like,
Aaron, do you ever look at your comedy and use that as like, well, first of all, one, do you watch it just to watch it, just to see, like, do you use it also maybe as like, mind you, I just remembered you just said you don't really prepare, but do you ever watch it kind of for little pointers or like, oh, that was good, I should go with that angle, or ever?
No, I mean, if I have to send a tape to somebody as a submission or something, I'll be like, okay, let me watch these 2 and see which one's better, and that's it. I try to not be indulgent. I mean, I just try to not think about it and just try to constantly stay in a creative state. Once something's done and made, it's done and made, and then I move on to the next thing. You know?
Absolutely. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up here. I thank all 3 of you for coming on the show. Like, it really, really means a lot. Aaron, thank you so much. I gotta say, man, like, you're an inspiration to seeing everything you do. Like, you know, you're a comedian, you've been an actor, you've been an author as well. That's awesome that you're able to do everything, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Thanks,
man.
Peter. Thank you. It means a lot to be on this. Thank you.
And some closing remarks quickly. Anything specifically we should be checking out?
Yeah, I'm at the Stand Comedy Club every Monday. I do a show there called Frantic Mondays. It's fantastic. Great guys like Dan Soder drop by, Big J. Okerson, Bill Burr, tons of great drop-ins, and In Hot Water on Compound Media every Tuesday at 2.
Perfect. I'm going to put the links, what I put on YouTube, in the video description with all your work, so people can check that out. Yeah. And Kelly, thank you so much for coming on. Billions is a great show. I'm a big fan of your work, and thank you so much for coming on. It really means a lot.
Thanks for having me. This was a blast. Thank you, guys. Great talking to you.
And anything specific we should be looking out for?
The Americans premieres next week, and also you mentioned Dan Soder, who I know is a mutual friend. He and I, who's also on Billions, he plays Mafi. He and I will be seen in a movie, Salma Hayek, Alec Baldwin movie called Drunk Parents later this year. So, and he's a great guy. But yeah, keep watching.
Great. And Charles, thank you so much. It really means a lot for you to come on. You've been in, like I said, Splinter. Like, I mean, it was cool, like Breaking Bad. But then I was like, man, like, yeah, Splinter.
I was shooting both those 2 simultaneously.
Wow, perfect. But thanks a lot. I think this is like when the birds are chirping. I think it's our time to leave, eh? But Charles, thanks a lot for coming on. Anything we should be on the lookout for?
Well, I'm kind of sad to actually promote this one. March 9th, I think, Training Day with Bill Paxton.
Oh.
I'm just heartbroken that I have to watch that. Is coming out, and then I'm returning to the Blacklist as Gray after this little break they're on right now. And yeah, hopefully I got some features coming out this year, but I've heard that for a couple of years now, so you never know. But I just want to, really nice to get to meet Aaron and Kelly. Aaron, because you. Yeah. I can't look at hot chocolate the same way anymore.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
No problem, guys. Well, all the best, and thank you all for tuning in on Popternative. You can catch previous episode of Popternative on our YouTube page, and we're also on SoundCloud and iTunes. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.